I'm coming to this as a person who is an Aquarius rising, which means, for people who don't know, that my first house is opened by the sign of Aquarius, meaning that the sign of Aquarius was what was rising on the horizon the moment I was born. So the rising sign is very, very unique to each individual. It's really one of the things in the birth chart that makes things super specific. For example, I have a sun in Gemini, so anyone who's born within that approximate 30-day period throughout the year is going to have the sun in Gemini. But with a rising sign, it's going to change every approximately 2 hours. The exact point of my rising sign is at 1 degree and 33 arc minutes of Aquarius. This whole Pluto in Aquarius ingress, Pluto coming into Aquarius, there's a lot of talk on social media and the internet and just kind of like in the mainstream where people are talking about Pluto in Aquarius, Pluto in Aquarius. Part of me really wants to jump in and be like, well, actually, blah, 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 this, because this is the thing, like, astrology is an art, it is a craft, it is so many things, it is divination, it is a sacred practice, it's an ancient practice that's been handed down and taught for thousands of years that we know of. Thousands of years that it's been recorded, right? It's very possible that this is a practice that people have been in some way using since the beginning of like humanity, right? I think that we miss a lot when we forget that astrology is that. I think like it's a tough thing because I think it's really, really cool that a lot of people have this awareness, and I think they should. I think people should know about astrology and they should know like what's going on if that's interesting to them, if that's something that could be supportive to them. But I think also any sacred practice, any lineage of knowledge, I think this is the thing, any lineage of knowledge, spiritual or not, can be kind of dangerous when used just a little bit, just piecemeal, or just the surface. And I don't know, like I'm also not saying, I think this really ties into my thoughts around cultural appropriation as well. Cultural appropriation is not only a product of, it's not just a product, it's something that white supremacy actually demands. White supremacy actually demands that we appropriate culture and that we capitalize on it and that we monetize it. And cultural appropriation is not just that, like it's not just an oppressive thing. Cultural appropriation is also dangerous because when people are taking things out of like the sacred lineage of learning and taking like the tools that are like that should be used with a teacher and trying to use them, I think that is actually dangerous. Like, I think when we're dealing with things that are in essence not of this material world, we best have some tools and some practices to help us navigate those because they can be very scary, very triggering. I think a lot of people have had experience with quote unquote bad medicine, with like, I think there are like people in every tradition, in every walk of life, who are just mean-spirited, who are evil. And so I believe that there are people out there who could be using astrology and tarot, for example, or other spiritual practices in like unethical ways, purposefully or not purposefully. I could even surmise, even for me, I'm like, how ethical is it to like give your full like analysis of Pluto and Aquarius in like a 10-second soundbite on Instagram? I don't know. Like, and obviously there are a lot of really, really, really incredible astrologers on Instagram who are ethical about the content that they post and have boundaries about it. Like, they're posting stuff that isn't, scare tactics, that is supportive to where people are at, that is content that they think people can ethically consume without a professional astrologer right next to them, if that makes any sense, right? It's like, okay, I've created this content specifically for people to take in wherever they're at, whether that's, whatever, just sitting there reading the Instagram, scrolling through Instagram, whatever. But I think there's a difference between that and like, very, very quick, scary, triggering content. And okay, so to bring it all back to Pluto and Aquarius. Pluto and Aquarius is not just one thing. It is not just one thing. And let's also remember, like, Pluto in Aquarius is like a 20-year transit. Okay? So like Pluto coming into Aquarius just in the last 3 weeks, some of us may have felt it very personally, like myself. Not everyone is going to be feeling Pluto in Aquarius in the same way. It's going to depend very, very heavily on your birth chart. For me, Pluto going over my rising sign, like, that is a transit that not that many people are going to experience in their life, because Pluto takes so long to transit. Like, so there's a transit that happens kind of in midlife that's coming up for me in probably the next year or so, which is the Pluto square Pluto. It's where Pluto is 90 degrees from your natal Pluto in your birth chart. So that's something that anyone who makes it to that age is going to go through, is a Pluto square Pluto. But a Pluto across your ascendant is really only going to happen, it's only going to happen if your rising sign is like relatively close to your Pluto placement. Pluto is not going to make it's not going to go all the way around your birth chart in your life unless you live 248 years. Chances of a person having a Pluto going across their ascendant is 4 out of 12 or 5 out of 12. So less than half, right? I personally am not like trying to flex here, but like I personally am probably feeling the Pluto Aquarius transit in more personal. I think this is the thing. The first house is personal. It's your body, it's your identity, it's your vitality. It's what I personally am sort of like it's really how I show up in the world. Like, when you meet me, you will feel Aquarius. First impressions, it's Aquarius energy, right? It can be your literal body and physical appearance, how you express yourself, right? So like, not a flex, but like literally Pluto coming across my ascendant is a once in a lifetime transit, like personal transit. Like, okay, Pluto in Aquarius, first of all, it's going to take like 20 years. Second of all, not everyone's going to experience it in the same way, right? And it's going to be experienced differently. Pluto in Aquarius, depending on where it is in your birth chart, is going to hit you differently. And for some, it's going to be more intense than others. And now I'm going to put my like anti-oppressive hat on, because we always have to remember that the most marginalized people, Pluto is like, it represents so many things, but it can represent trauma, represent deep transformative experiences, excavation of like what is like just kind of like at the in the depths, in the like dark scrungy you know, all the dark scrungy shit like just needs to get completely expulsed out of us. That's what Pluto wants. Pluto can also kind of represent like an obsession for that reason, because you know, we get obsessed with things that usually need to be cleared out, or that we think need to be cleared out, whether that's accurate or not. You know what I mean? Like, depending, so many things here, like how Pluto sort of shows up in our personal lives and how we approach Pluto really depends a lot on where Pluto is in the sign, but also, again, the house. Because, again, Pluto is in a sign for 20 something years, 16, 20 years, depending on, retrogrades and stuff like that. That's like a whole generation of people. So, like, for me, everyone who's born near me has Pluto in Scorpio. Big whoop, big deal. Like, yeah, it shapes our generation, but, you know, what house Pluto is in, what aspects are happening with Pluto. Are there squares? Are there oppositions? Are there conjunctions? Sign Pluto is in, what is the ruler of that sign, where is that planet. As an anti-oppression practitioner, to me, Pluto can really show, it can be some, I mean, like, other planets are going to be more, I think, privileged, but to me, like, Pluto can have to do with privilege a little bit, and like, not privilege, not necessarily privilege in terms of like wealth, but like more so like what are like the sort of big shifts. I keep trying to find a different word than transformation, but what are like the big things that this person is working to uncover in their lives? Is it a bit more of like a soul journey? Like, Pluto tends to be like an evolutionary thing. It's not just like, oh, I like pink, right? Or it's not, it's like, no, it's like your soul. It's like actual past lives, or even lineage or ancestral. I think that's where the anti-oppression like thing comes in. I think like Pluto can be looked at as an ancestral thing. A lot of people will look at it as like a karmic thing. For me, I like the word ancestral as an anti-oppression, abolitionist, you know, lens astrologer. Yeah, like, this is the thing when we're using these scare tactics of like Pluto's gonna like XYZ. It's like, okay, we need to remember that marginalized people everywhere have been experiencing this all along. Pluto in Capricorn was not like, and this is the thing, is like, okay, Pluto in Aquarius is gonna be pretty wild, but like Pluto in Capricorn was no like piece of cake. Like, it's like, oh, the revolution's coming. It's like, yeah, maybe, but like, people have been oppressed forever. Revolution's good. Like, fuck. There are things to be wary of. There are things to like look at, but again, I really feel that if a person is going to look at Pluto in Aquarius, then you also have to look at the other transits. You have to look at what Neptune is doing. You have to look at what Uranus is doing. You have to look at what Saturn and Jupiter are doing. And then you have to overlay that over your own birth chart and look at how do you fit into this? How do you, what is your role here? Because I think at the end of the day, that is what, like, you cannot just look at the scary parts of Pluto and Aquarius without looking at the possibly extremely big and beautiful opportunities. And I think like energetically, what we really have to look at is like, what does Pluto and Aquarius want of us, right? What is the sign of Aquarius? Let's break it down. Aquarius is an air sign. That's a mental place. That's the mind. That's thinking. That's how we solve problems, how we communicate. Aquarius is inherently connected to technology, but like technology, yes, could be AI, but technology is also smaller things. What are the technologies of our communities? What are the technologies or the structures of our communities? Aquarius is still ruled by Saturn traditionally. Yes, it's ruled by Uranus in a modern sense, but traditionally it's ruled by Saturn, just like Capricorn. So actually there's something there where we've already built on this. Like Capricorn is about laying the foundations. It could also be showing us the foundations that are rotten, but it's also about setting us up for success long term, right? In its highest form, Capricorn can set us up for long-term success. And Aquarius, being ruled by Saturn, is also about structures. I believe, and this is, my experience as an Aquarian person, I think Aquarius is also very much about structures. It's about asking, but it's looking at structures differently. Not necessarily what is success and how can I set myself up for it, but Aquarius is asking us what structures work for the collective in a bigger Capricorn's Earth, right? So it's going to be very concerned with the material world. It can, in this world, people are going to be using it. This is the other thing. Every sign, every planet, everything can be viewed through the lens of anti-Black white supremacy. So it can be taken by those powers, by those lenses, and used in a certain way. So Capricorn can be wielded to be hierarchical, oppressive, all of those things. But so can Aquarius, right? Aquarius can be used to be liberatory in an anti-oppressive way. It can be used to abolish the systems and create new ones. But it can also be used to innovate to the point that there's even more social inequity than we currently see. So I personally think that for the everyday person, Pluto in Aquarius is an opportunity, a 20-year opportunity to look at what are the structures in our life that are not working and to be ready to, I want to say explode them, but like literally rebuild them, get rid of them and rebuild them. And that's very broad, that's very vague. Like that's going to mean different things for different people. For some people that might be where they live, that might be their job, that might be how they approach relationships, developing a different relationship with technology, right? Like we all need to look at that. Okay, what's my relationship to technology, right? Like I personally feel like Aquarius is also a fixed sign, which means that it is very committed, very stubborn, very good at repeating the same thing over and over, doing what needs to be done. But it can also get stagnant. It can also get sort of stuck on its ideas. This is the right way. And I think that Pluto going through Aquarius is also teaching us that. It's asking us to consider for ourselves and in our communities, when do we need to be more stubborn? When do we need to put our foot down and say like, no, this is like really what I believe? And when do we need to just fucking let it go? Right? Like on a very simple human level, that's that's a thing. That could be a question for Pluto and Aquarius. And I think for me, this is what I'm most interested in when it comes to astrology, is like, how do we use this in our daily lives? How can we apply these energies as tools to actually be working towards the world that we want to see? Aquarius is also very collective minded. It wants to see the big picture. It's always going to be Aquarius is interesting, right? Because the symbol for Aquarius is the water bearer, and it's an air sign. It's not a water sign. So there's this like feeling with Aquarius. I've always really related to this as the water bearer. Aquarius is holding the water. It's holding the water. It isn't the water though. So there's like a detachment. Aquarius energy can come off as a little bit cold, as a little bit aloof. There's a detachment because they see everything. Aquarius sees everything, sees the big picture. For me personally, that's why like anti-oppressive thought, abolitionist ideas, radical ideas are so again, they're so Aquarian to me, and because they get at the root, and I think that that's what's being asked of us as a collective is like, okay, you see this one thing, but what is the bigger picture here? Like, we're all worried about being able to pay our rent, right? We're all worried about paying our rent. We're all worried about losing our houses, buying a house, whatever the heck. Okay, look at the bigger picture here. The bigger picture is that people are unhoused. The bigger picture is that there are people out there with 10 houses. The bigger picture is that there are more than enough houses to house all the people right now. The problem is inequity. Look at the bigger picture. The reason you can't afford your rent is because of anti-Black white supremacist capitalism. Right? And to bring it all back to the root. And like for myself, for example, as a non-Black person, I'm not indigenous to the land I'm on, I'm a settler here. I need to look at the privileges that I have. I need to be willing to look at people whose tangible material wealth has been suffering all along. And how can I actually be working for their liberation, not mine? I personally feel that that is what Aquarius wants us to do, and what Pluto and Aquarius specifically wants us to do is I don't know, I see Pluto and Aquarius as true anti-oppressive practice over the next 20 years. If we can actually do that, if we can actually, instead of be working for our own liberation, be working for people who actually have tangibly, materially less wealth than us, who tangibly, materially are being actively violenced by the state more, and I think personally, I see this as unhoused people. I see this as Black people. I see this as Black single mothers. I see this as people who are incarcerated or who are being murdered by the police. These are the people who I see in my, in this nation that I'm in on Turtle Island. These are the people that I see who are the most marginalized. I think Aquarius wants me to see how my liberation is tied to a person who is sitting in jail's liberation. Right? It doesn't matter if I somehow get enough money to pay my rent, or I somehow get a good job to pay my rent. Like, what the fuck even is a good job now? Right? Our reality has been stripped away. That's another thing that Pluto and Aquarius, I think, wants of us, is for us to change our mindset and to develop a new one, right? That literally my liberation depends on the liberation of the person who is sitting in prison right now. I think that's what we need to get on board with as a collective. Yes, astrology is fun. Yes, astrology is great and cool, but like if you're going to let it into your psyche, if you're going to talk about it with people, if you're going to let it into your consciousness at all, consider first of all, consider the source that you're getting it from, right? Like, try to find people who seem to be ethical about the way that they're practicing. I mean, I'm always gonna say go to someone who is like actively speaking out about anti-oppression, about abolition, about police abolition, somebody who's actively speaking about their racial positionality in the world, somebody who's actively speaking about marginalization and violence, because I personally believe that like spirituality without talking about these things is garbage. I don't know, like if none of that is your jam, if you're like, I don't care, give a fuck about anti-oppression or abolition, then I don't even know why you're listening to this, to be honest. But I don't know, just like it's something about the ethics, right? And the honoring of lineage and the like, creating a is this person creating a container for me to actually apply this knowledge? I think just seeing the bigger picture of the astrology. It's not just for personal growth. It can't be for personal growth. It has to be for collective growth. Again, I think this is the lesson of Pluto and Aquarius. Okay, I need to stop and go on a big walk by the river. Love you all. Bye bye.